Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie No, and I'm a certified life and mindset coach. Today, we're here on Monday to talk about money. Last time, I talked about how our money beliefs and stories really create our reality. Today, we're going to talk about that again, and I'm going to show you where to find your money. With my coaching clients, I often talk about how our thoughts or the stories we believe really shape our reality and results that's happening in our life. Our beliefs are based on anything. It could be from messaging from society, what your family has taught you, what you've learned at school, what trusted adults have taught you all your life. It's everything around us. And then you form a belief about that. I want you to get curious about your money story and see how it plays out in your life. The reason this is important is I'm going to give an example today. Oftentimes, people will say things like, I'm so broke. But what does that mean? We want to get clear on what a statement like that means. Broke. Does that mean you cannot afford your living expenses, your rent? Does that just mean you can't afford going out, like extra things like clothes and makeup and things like that? Or is it literally you don't know where your next meal is coming from? I'm going to teach you how to find your money today. And lucky for you, I created a copy of my actual budgeting template. So all you do is plug in your numbers. But let's get into mindset and why this makes sense and how to make it work for you. I'm going to play out two different scenarios. Oftentimes, people really confuse their thoughts for reality or fact or truth. Something like, I'm buried in debt. That feels factual, but what is the fact? Because for someone like Elon Musk, if he said, I'm buried in debt, do you think he's talking about $5,000 on his credit card? He's probably talking along the lines of millions, billions, maybe, right? So when you say something like, I'm buried in debt, we make a distinction that that is not factual. It might feel factual to you, and you're like, but that's my life. I am buried in debt. Yeah, I get that. That is what your story currently is right now, and it feels that way. But what is the fact? So when you say I'm buried in debt, is it 10,000? Is it 5,000? Is it 200,000? Right? We want to really get clear on what the circumstance is. And the circumstance is the fact. So something that can be argued in a court of law, or you could prove it, right? Like with your bank statements or something that someone actually said. It has to be factual. I'm going to just use this as an example, like I'm buried in debt, right? And the circumstance is actually $5,000 on your credit card. And when you think something like, I'm buried in debt, it creates maybe anxiety or fear. Let's look at fear. If you're feeling afraid when you think, I'm buried in debt, because you look at your credit card and you have $5,000 on your statement. You see how I separated the fact is you owe $5,000 on your credit card. Your thought is, I'm buried in debt. The feeling that that creates for you is fear. When you're feeling afraid, what are some of the things you do? Some of the actions you might take is one, you probably just want to avoid talking about it, avoid thinking about it. So you're doing everything else but thinking about it. So Netflix, going out with friends, and that going out probably means spending more money, right? You're putting off paying your bill, which is probably incurring more late fees or interest. What are you not doing when you're feeling afraid? You are most likely not looking for other opportunities to make more money. You're not getting creative in seeing other opportunities for income. If you're feeling afraid, you might be trying to spend more to try to temporarily relieve that fear. And in the end, you've just created more debt. So you really are buried in debt. Also, your brain just reinforced that story to you. Now you've just done all these actions and it's just reinforced the feeling of I'm buried in debt. And it looked for all these places where it is true. Then I'm going to counter that with, let's say a completely different individual has the same amount on their credit card. It's $5,000 on their credit card. This person thinks, thank God for debt. I want you to really sit with that. When one person thinks, I'm buried in debt, and the other person thinks, thank God for debt. Do you see the contrast of even when you say it to yourself? I want you to close your eyes and say it to yourself. It creates such a different feeling, right? If I say, thank God for debt, that creates a type of gratitude, right? I feel grateful. And from that feeling of grateful or gratitude, I'm going to work on my budget, keep an eye on my spending. When I'm feeling grateful for debt, I'm going to look for different ways to increase my money coming in. I'm going to look for opportunities, right? For more money. I'm going to get creative. I might ask someone for a loan, or I might find a bank to loan me some money temporarily. I might ask for an advance at work. I do some extra babysitting or dog walking or sell some things I don't need to create an extra income if I know I have debt that I need to pay off. I make my monthly payments on my credit card bill. And in the end, you create this reality where debt is a useful tool that is available for you when you need it. You created the situation where you use debt to temporarily bridge you, and you're like, no problem. This is just a tool that I'm using currently. And meanwhile, I'm going to set myself up to pay this back, to create income, to set myself up for the next opportunity for myself. Do you see how the circumstance is the same? You have $5,000 in debt on your credit card, but what you're thinking about it really creates a different, right? When you're stressed, when you're in that fear, when you're anxious, you act completely differently than if you were feeling gratitude, or if you were hopeful, or if you were motivated or determined to pay this back. Totally different actions. And that's what ultimately creates our reality or the results in our life. I created this template for anyone who's interested because a part of this mindset work is I know people are often like, but money is, I don't want to know about the mindset stuff. That has nothing to do with it. But it has everything to do with it, right? I meet the most brilliant, successful, smart women everywhere. But when we talk about money, it tends to get uncomfortable. It tends to be quickly shut down with, oh, I'm not good at math. Like, I don't look at that stuff. Or, oh, my husband deals with that. I'm not good at money. Like, what does that mean? I'm not good at money, right? So I'm here to show you how important it is to really be intentional about your thoughts around money. If you're hoping to make more, or if you're hoping to get more comfortable, get more confident with handling your money. So this budgeting tool, I know you're thinking, okay, there's a million budgeting tools, templates, apps. You're right, there is. There's nothing special about it. It's the same as dieting. If you never get to the root cause of the issue, you can try all the different diets, the different trends, and it'll only stick for a month or two or three. And then you're going to revert back to the original problem. This is kind of similar. Yes, you can use any budgeting template. What this is for is to build the awareness around your money. So when I say, let's find your money, I literally mean, let's see where it's coming from, where it's going. So I'm going to share my screen and show you this budgeting tool. So I will link this, and or you can DM me for a copy. If you go into this Google Sheet, make a copy and then keep it downloaded and put in everything you see here. I mean, obviously edit it if you have different things and whatnot. The more detailed, the better if you want. So I want you to track this, like put in your monthly salary. If you're doing a side hustle, enter that. Put in your housing, put in every little thing, right? And at the end, you're going to see exactly where your money is going, each line item. And that's going to bring up certain feelings. That's going to bring up something for you, whether it's embarrassment because you're like, oh my gosh, I spent this much on eating out this month, or oh my gosh, I spent this much at Sephora, whatever it is. You're going to feel a certain way when you look at these numbers. And that's the thing. When you talk to people and they're like, well, I have an idea of where my money goes, or I kind of know, what is that? You don't actually know or keep track of your line items. When I say line items, I'm talking about like when you break it down. So yes, you might know that you've spent $5,000 this month alone on your credit card, right? But when I say line items, it's kind of like breaking it down into details. So 1,000 of that is eating out. 2,000 of that is hanging out, like entertainment. 500 is to medical bills. Another 500 is for shopping, whatever your breakdown comes to, right? Because it's different. When you say, well, I kind of have an idea of where my money is going. I know, I just spend too much. What if when you look at it, you don't actually have feelings about your expenses? You're like, yeah, but that's like what I should spend, or that's what I want to spend. Then maybe you have an under-earning problem. Maybe we need to focus on what you're bringing in for your money. Maybe you haven't asked for a raise in 2 years and you've accepted that. It's easy to sometimes, when you clump it all together, you're just like, oh, I spend too much, or I don't know where my money is, or why do I feel like I never have enough? It's because you haven't ever broken it down and taken it piece by piece to really get to the root of what is it. So for example, I was just talking to my husband and, we talk about our finances. We actually do like annual quarterly meetings and talk about our money and budget and what's going on. One of the things that I gave as an example, because he's like, yeah, I know where my money goes. And I was like, okay, tell me. He kind of said the same thing. Yeah, I mean, there's enough, but he couldn't tell me where it all goes. How much do we spend at Amazon annually? How much do we spend at Target? If I saw an Amazon breakdown, and let's say I said, hey, I just ran the numbers, and let's say, for example, you make $100,000 a year, and I ran the numbers, and your Amazon purchases total 30,000 a year. There would be some feelings. I don't know about you, but to me, I'm like, oh, 30,000 at Amazon? What am I buying? So then that creates the curiosity. What is it? Because there are things that you're probably spending on and you don't even know or really like understand how that impacts you. Let's say you decided to walk 1 block every day. But in your head every day, you're like, it's not going to make a difference, like so little. But there's something called the compounding effect, right? Where if I walked 1 block a day for the next 20 years of my life, do you think that would have an effect on my life versus if I didn't take that walk at all? So 20 years of walking 1 block a day, or 20 years of nothing at all, because in my head, I'm like, what's the point? It's just 1 block. That's not doing anything. In 20 years, that's going to add up to something, whether it's lower cholesterol, lower blood pressure, whatever it is in 20 years. It's like that 1 block of just being active and taking that walk, even if it's just for my mental health, just getting out, fresh air, having that quiet time for 1 block, that would have such an impact in my life for 20 years versus not at all. So it's the same with like a budgeting tool. You might look at it as just, I'm just like sticking numbers here and there and tracking. Yes, you are tracking, but you're looking at it in the wrong way. We're tracking for the purpose of getting aware, growing aware of our money, our habits, what drives us. For instance, if I see that my Sephora spending is 15,000 in a year, I would get curious, wait a minute, I don't even really wear makeup. When I sit down and I think about it, actually, when I go to the mall and I don't find something for myself, I end up going into Sephora and just picking up something small because I feel like I deserve it. So I just picked up something just because I wanted to. I felt like it in that moment. But when I really sit down and I look at that number, financially speaking, and in my overall arching goals for my financial well-being, Sephora is not in there for me personally. So that would be a flag to me to look into that spending. Like, what is it that I'm feeling that drives this purchase? Or what is this habit? When did I start this? Or what's going on? Get curious about what created this for me. So yes, it is just another budgeting template, but I want you to look at this as awareness. So when you say, I have an idea of where my money goes, this is really going to show you exactly where your money goes. It's going to open your eyes to your habits, what you're thinking, what might be driving this spending, or maybe it's not even a spending problem, and maybe it's an under-earning problem because maybe you're thinking something like, oh no, surely I don't deserve that raise, or such and such deserved it more. See how that's mindset? I think it's easy for all of us to want to blame the circumstance or the situation or the person for our results in our life, right? So if I'm under earning, I might blame my boss. He never pays me what I deserve. Or if I'm looking at my spending, like, oh, the stores, it's so crazy, inflation. I mean, yes, inflation, but look at that. Can we really blame inflation for our $20,000 Sephora habit? I want you to see how when you blame or use the circumstance or person or situation as the problem or the reason or the excuse, you are essentially giving your power away. All right? You're giving your autonomy, your choice, all of that. You're saying my employer gets to decide what my work is valued at, right? Or these stores get to decide how much money they're going to take from me. I mean, do you see how disempowering this is? The world and life is happening to you, and you have no say in it. You're just along for the ride. How does that feel? Personally, I hate the feeling that I'm just running around, putting out fires, and reacting to everything around me, and it's almost like I don't have control of my own life. This is what the mindset part is about. It's about getting intentional, really discovering what is driving this action, what is driving the spending, what is driving the earnings, and then getting to the root of that. So, to wrap this up with things like talking about money, spending money, creating money, we're just opening up so many more possibilities to ourselves in our world. Maybe things that we haven't even thought possible for us. That's the reason I love doing these chats on Mondays. It's just to kind of expose ourselves and practice talking about something that makes so many of us uncomfortable. I hope that you join in for next week's conversation about money and send me a DM or email me for a link, or I'll link it below. But yeah, if this resonates with you, send it to a friend, share it with your girlfriend, right? Women need to support women. We all want to make lots of money together and have a lasting impact in this world. So let's share and empower our friends and girlfriends and tell them to join on Mondays so that we can all get comfortable with talking about things that make us uncomfortable, like money. Thanks for joining. I'll send out the link for the free template so that you can actually put it into action for a month and see exactly where your money's going and find your money. All right, thanks.